Just speaking of this colonial, this disgusting gangster behavior, look at 1953. What happened in 1953 in Iran? There was a coup, right? And it's very funny because the CIA admits they did it, but MI6 won't admit it. So the MI6 is the British equivalent. They did it together, right? It was they got rid of Mossadegh. Mossadegh was the democratically elected prime minister of Iran, and he wanted to nationalize the oil. And if you say the word nationalize in the global south, you will have Marines on your doorstep tomorrow morning, right? So that's how it works, as many countries can attest to. You know, Guatemala, the year after, United Fruit Company. And what's interesting is that, you know, in the case of Iran, Iran at the time had the biggest oil field in the world, right? Oil refinery, I should say. Abadan. It's at Abadan. And this was, of course, built by the British. And it's so funny because, this is during the era of decolonization, so they say. We still have colonization. And so the British, you know, they had to leave. And they were very angry about this, right? All right? It's unacceptable, boy. Can't have such nonsense. Right? Because they were angry. They had built this refinery and they didn't want to leave it behind. Right? Because the poor colonizers, they invested, right? They always talk as if they put in more than they got, when it's actually the complete reverse, right? It's the complete opposite. They're stealing and exploiting. So he wanted to nationalize this, Mossadegh, right? And not just that, just all of Iran's oil, because the British had monopolized the biggest oil refinery in the world at Abadan. They had called this the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Then they changed it to the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. And today, you may know it as British Petroleum, BP. So you may go to a gas station and see, BP. Yes, it's a colonizer company, right? That's what it is. So they were stealing Iran's oil, exploiting Iran like you would not believe. They made some shitty deal also at one point where they were just robbing them blind. You know, it's just typical colonizer stuff. And you know, once he said that, Mossadegh, well, as you know, they came in, they couped him, and you know how they talk about like disinformation and interfering with the media? They were doing that as well. So they had CIA agents who were writing up stuff in the Iranian press to discredit him, to smear him, etc., etc. The whole works. And the next year, they did the same thing with Guatemala, right? So you had this United Fruit Company, which is now known as Chiquita Bananas. Again, it's so funny when you see all these like colonial multinationals that are still around, like as if nothing happened, as if they didn't do anything. Like BMW, they were using slave labor during the Holocaust, and now the BMW family is the richest family in Germany, and they were using slave labor during the Holocaust. That's what they did, and they're still. You know, they still have all these riches, like nothing happened, like they didn't do anything, like they committed no crimes. It's insane, right? So you have all these companies that are still around today, all these families that got rich off of slavery, off of stealing, off of, genocide, and it's just like it's allowed, like no one says anything. It's mind-boggling. And so, again, the incoming leadership in Guatemala wanted to nationalize the fruit, and all the fields, and that was not going to be accepted by the Americans. So they went in and did a coup, right? This is always the case. They want to steal resources. They want to steal, natural resources, and also make sure that they can put their companies in. So this is not just about putting a military there. It's economic. They're intertwined. They're one and the same. Capitalism and colonization. They go hand in hand as usual. So, it's disgusting. There's a long history of this. And then they have the nerve to come in and talk about election interference. I mean, they've been interfering in the whole world for decades, for centuries. The European colonial powers, the Americans. So, this is why it's important to understand history, because then you immediately know who's the hypocrite. You immediately know who the real oppressor is, who the real victim is, and what the situation is. So there you go.